body was decorated with a large tattoo of a dusty road leading to a farmhouse with gingham curtains and windows, and a little girl with pigtails sitting on a swing and holding a branch of a chestnut tree. And in the distance, clouds were grazing in a field behind a winding blue river. Off to the left, there was a small town with a petrol station, a few restaurants, some retail outlets, a movie theater, a municipal courthouse, and a church where service had just ended. The minister was shaking hands with the parishioners as they left. He climbed into their pickup trucks, SUVs, and VW buses. And as we lay together one night, I buried my face in her tattoo and heard the wind in the trees, the murmur of the river, and found myself lying in a field of tall grass under an oak tree, moonlight filtering through the leaves. Somehow I'd been absorbed into her tattoo. So I picked myself up and walked into town and began looking for a job. But the mill had closed down and the mine had ceased to operate. The storefronts were boarded up. People were packing their vehicles and moving away to other parts of the country. With no work anywhere, I spent the night in a mission. I sat in a room crowded with tired, unshaven men and listened to 40-minute sermons. And then we ate sandwiches, took showers, put on fresh pajamas issued by church volunteers, and went to bed. The mission was near the waterfront, next to the railroad tracks, and the building shook whenever a train rumbled by. When I woke the next morning, lying beside her in the bed, I decided to break off the relationship. There was a time when my friend George was so unhappy, he felt like crying all the time. But somehow he couldn't. His body was bursting with tears that wouldn't come. He sat at home trying to force them out. One day his sister told him how good it felt to cry. It gave her such relief. But what if you want to cry but can't, he asked. Use onions, she said. Onions will help get you going. He thought, I must remember to buy onions. Sometimes watching a powerfully moving scene in a movie theater or arguing with his mother in a restaurant, the tears would begin to well up and he'd fight them with all of his strength, struggle to push them down inside of him and force his mind to go blank to prevent himself from collapsing in public. Then, when he'd come home later and try to recreate the emotion, nothing would happen, and he'd feel cheated of the opportunity to cry. So he bought an onion, took it home, and chopped it up, leaning into it for full effect. His eyes burned and teared, but he couldn't get anything else going. He didn't tell his sister he'd failed. Then, one day, he summoned the courage to ask out a woman at work whom he liked. She accepted. A few nights later, they went to dinner and a concert. He was nervous at the beginning of the evening, but after a few drinks in the restaurant, he loosened up. They were having a good time, and sitting beside her in the auditorium, listening to the music, he felt a wave of happiness sweep over him. After the concert, on their way back to his parked car, they approached a drunk standing on a corner, drinking from a bottle in a paper bag. They averted their eyes as they passed him, but he became abusive anyway. He started calling her names, telling her what he wanted to do to her, where he wanted to touch her, referring to parts of her body in an ugly, obscene manner. He was broadly built and well over 6 feet and looked dangerous. So George hurried her along, trying to ignore him. But the drunk followed them down the block, shouting one insult after another at her. When they got back to the car and drove off, he felt ashamed. The evening had been ruined. They hardly spoke on the way to her place. When he got back to his own apartment a half hour later, he couldn't get over what had happened. He sat in his darkened living room, brooding, and ran and reran heroic scenarios through his mind, imagining himself turning, grabbing the drunk by the collar, telling him he was a filthy tramp, and knocking him out with one punch, or staggering him with a karate chop to the throat. But he couldn't drive from his mind the memory of what had really happened. He knew their relationship had been poisoned, that he would never be able to ask her out again. And thinking about how much he liked her, and the hope of companionship she had offered him, he began, at last, to cry. Not full-blown, no-hold-barred sobbing, but hot, burning tears, squeezed out between tightly clenched eyelids. Bitter, unsatisfying spasms. Christmas Eve